Does anyone remember watching this video? If I can find the exact one that I'm talking about that I saw for the first time, I'll put it on the screen. But it's basically just a bunch of kids in an interrogation room talking the sentences that they were saying, the most graphic, gruesome details about a crime. And I remember watching it and thinking, wonder what happened. I looked it up. I don't know what I was expecting. It is so much worse than I thought. 15-year-old Seth Jackson was one out of 3 children to his parents, Sonia and Scott Jackson. The family lived in Somerville in Florida, and growing up, Seth was known to be generally a very happy kid. And the older that he got more mature. His personality changed a little bit, but in the usual way that any teenage boy would. At his core, Seth was a genuinely good guy. He loved animals, he loved his friends, he loved his family, he loved fighting championships. His dream was to eventually become a UFC fighter, and he had a lot to look forward to. It was 2010 when 14-year-old Seth got into a relationship with a 14-year-old girl by the name of Amber Wright. Amber was everything to Seth at the start. She was funny, she was pretty, she was outgoing, and the two of them very quickly fell in love, or what felt like love to them, and they became inseparable. But that would not last long, because Amber and Seth were the type of couple that would be super lovey-dovey all over social media, tagging each other in flirty posts, talking back and forth. But offline, their relationship was very unstable. They both were the type of people that had strong opinions, and a lot of the time, most of the time, they just could not get on the same page about anything. So just weeks after Seth declared his love for Amber, the two of them broke up. And to make the breakup even harder, Seth suspected that Amber had been cheating on him with an older boy, 18-year-old Michael Bargo. And he was right, because very soon after their breakup, Amber and Michael got together, and Seth did not take the news lightly at all. He was absolutely devastated, but he was also angry. And the breakup was already very, very bad from the start, but it only got worse. There were accusations, social media posts of arguments back and forth, in-person arguments in front of their friends, which then only caused the friends to jump in and get involved and also argue. And at first, it did just seem like teenage drama, but then it started to feel like something darker and scarier behind the scenes was going on, specifically on Amber's side. Seth had reasons not to like Michael, the new boyfriend, but one of the biggest reasons why he did dislike him wasn't only because he practically stole his girlfriend, but it was because he did not like the way that he treated Amber. Seth thought that he could treat her much better, and he thought that she deserved better. And even though Seth and Amber obviously did have their own issues, it felt like deep down he still wanted the best for her. Even though they weren't together anymore, he couldn't help but care for her, and he was like drawn to her. He had a soft spot for her, and he was still putting effort into getting her back even after the relationship ended. And by the way, I'm not saying that Seth was an angel, because he definitely had his fair share of negative things to say about Amber in the middle of the breakup as well, but I think he did care for her. Michael, on the other hand, and let me remind you that Michael is 18 years old, so he's a legal adult. Seth and Amber at this time are now 15 years old, but Michael had what was described by a police officer as an, quote, intense hatred for Seth Jackson. And Michael was a very dangerous person. On April 17th of 2011, Seth received a text from Amber. She was asking him to meet up in person so they could talk about their relationship and quote-unquote work things out. Seth was confused because he knew that Amber was now dating Michael, and it was clear to anyone who knew them or knew about them that Seth and Michael did not get along. They had been arguing back and forth and back and forth and back and forth as of recent, both online and in person. So why Amber would go out of her way, apparently behind Michael's back, to meet up with Seth, it was weird. So when she asked him to meet up, Seth responded with, quote, Amber, if you have me jumped, I will never give you the time of day. To which Amber responded with by saying, quote, I could never do that to you. I just want me and you back. Amber was at her friend's house that night. Her friend's name is Charlie Ellie. She was older, she was 18 years old, and the two of them had plans to sleep over at her house that night. So Amber tells Seth, okay, look, just come over to Charlie's house. We can talk, just you and me, because I really want to figure things out. Seth felt cautious about the entire situation, but he did agree to go and meet up with her, and he told his mom that he was leaving to go and talk to Amber. Seth's mom knew that he had been having a really hard time with the breakup, so she was like, okay, you go, I'll see you later. His his family also knew Amber, obviously, because of the fact that the two of them used to date. So his mom knew that he was going to go over and talk to Amber. So that night, April 17th, 2011, 15-year-old Seth Jackson left his house, and he had no way of knowing it, but that would be the last time that he would ever be leaving his house again. By the following morning, Seth had still not returned back home. His mom knew that the last person that he was supposed to be with was Amber, yet she had no idea to know how that conversation went. Could it have gone well, and could he have spent the night with her maybe? It's possible, but given where their relationship stood, that wasn't where Seth's mom's head was going. Her immediate thought was the conversation probably didn't go well, and maybe that Seth just took off and ran away to get away from everything for a little bit, because again, she knew that he was not handling the breakup well at all. So her immediate thought was, well, maybe it just got to be too much for him. Maybe he just ran away, and maybe he's just off somewhere to clear his mind about everything that is going on. That is what was going through her head. Never in a million years could she have imagined that her little boy was gone. So she reported him missing to authorities, and initially this was a missing persons case, but that would all change very quickly. News coverage of Seth's disappearance spread quickly, and a guy by the name of Kyle Hooper watched the reports. He broke down, and he ended up confessing his role in the crime to his mother almost immediately. Kyle Hooper was a close friend of Seth's, but also he was Amber's half-brother. So Kyle and Seth had been close at one point, but their relationship got put in a rocky place when Seth and Amber broke up, and it only got worse when Kyle heard that Seth had been flirting with a girl that he liked. And then the nail in the coffin was when Kyle found Seth and this girl in bed together. So even though at one point they were really, really close, maybe even best friends, Kyle throughout the last couple of weeks had come to absolutely hate Seth. Not only because he was his half-sister's ex-boyfriend, but then also because he kind of took his girl. And that had made Kyle so angry to the point that he texted his friends that he wanted to kill Seth. Whether he said that in a joking manner or not, I personally don't think that's something to joke about. I'll let you decide, but I really don't think there was any joking behind that statement. Seth met up with Amber on a Sunday. He was reported missing that following Monday, and then Kyle confessed to his mother that Tuesday. So things were moving pretty quickly in this case. But even though you might think that because Kyle was very obviously drowning in guilt and he confessed to his mom that he did something to Seth, the case would be pretty straightforward, but it wasn't. Because it wasn't only Kyle that played a part in Seth's disappearance. It wasn't only Kyle and Amber. It wasn't only Kyle, Amber, and Charlie. Remember, Charlie is Amber's best friend, whose house she was at, whose house she told Seth to come to. It was a total of 6 people, all playing a different role in the reason as to why Seth never made it home that night. And Kyle came forward. He told his mom that something really, really bad had happened, and his mom thankfully went straight to the police station, reported it immediately. And from there, Kyle, Amber, and most of the rest of the group was very quickly rounded up and taken into custody. And investigators now needed to speak to every single one of them to figure out what happened. Problem was that all of them had different stories. Amber and Charlie's stories were that they were at Charlie's house, that Seth ended up coming over unexpected, and that things got really heated between Seth, Kyle, Amber's boyfriend, 18-year-old Michael, and their friend, 20-year-old Justin Soto. Both girls said that once the boys started arguing, they got scared. They locked themselves inside of Charlie's room to stay out of it, and they stayed there in the room for the remainder of the night. They did say that when they heard the boys argue, they heard really loud bangs, but they were not sure of what happened because they didn't see anything because they were inside of Charlie's room. Amber said that following morning, her and Charlie didn't wake up until 11 a.m., closer to noon, and that once they exited Charlie's room, they didn't see anything. Charlie pretty much said the same thing, but her story did sound off because she just looked so nervous and just weird when she was talking to investigators. Justin, on the other hand, 20-year-old Justin, he was acting clueless. He was like, yeah, I heard this little white boy. I think his name is Seth. Yeah, I heard that he's missing, but I don't really know why I'm here. The only one providing actual beneficial information was Kyle, and it took a lot of patience and a lot of time to get everyone to say the truth because they were all saying different things, but in the days that followed, they began turning on each other almost immediately, and one by one, slowly but surely, the real story came out. 18-year-old Michael was kind of the ringleader, not kind of, he definitely was the ringleader in all of this because he despised Seth, and he knew that Amber and Kyle also had their own issues with him. So he decided to come up with a plan. to kill 15-year-old Seth, and everyone involved would have a different role to play to make sure that this plan was executed correctly, to make sure that once Seth walked into Charlie's house, he never walked out again. The plan was that Amber was going to be the person responsible for luring Seth to Charlie's house under the pretense that they were going to have this serious talk about their relationship and getting back together. Charlie agreed that doing it at her house would make sense because no adults lived there and it was kind of secluded. Once Seth arrived, Amber would then text 20-year-old Justin and her boyfriend, 18-year-old Michael, to let them know to get ready and get in position. Once Seth and Amber walked in, Justin and Michael would then ambush him, tackle him to the ground, and then Kyle, the half-brother, would jump out with a piece of wood and hit Seth over the head with it. Then everyone else would leave Michael and Seth alone so that Michael could finish it all. And that is exactly what happened, almost, because Amber forgot to text the boys when Seth arrived. So when she and Seth walked into the house, they were not ready. And Seth looked around and realized in a split second that Amber had lied to him and that they were not alone. But before he could make a run for it, Kyle launched himself at Seth and hit him with a piece of wood. Michael then grabbed his gun and he Seth multiple times. Seth was hit, but with all and any strength that he had left, knowing that he was now fighting for his life, he used every last bit of energy in his body to make it out of the house and run towards the front yard. But Michael ran after him, caught up to him, and him again outside. Seth was barely hanging on, but he was still conscious. However, he didn't have any strength left to fight back. He was just too badly injured by that point, so he couldn't fight back when Michael, Kyle, and Justin then dragged him from the front yard and into the bathtub in the bathroom. Once they were in the bathroom, Michael then ordered everyone else to leave the bathroom because he wanted to have alone time with Seth to look him in the eyes before he killed him. And everyone did as they were told. They went to the living room and kitchen area and they began cleaning up the crime scene. As Michael was left in the bathroom with Seth, the group then heard Michael fire his yet again. And only after that final time, 15-year-old Seth was gone. The group then put his body into a sleeping bag, but before doing so, they fully broke both of his knees to be able to fit his body into the sleeping bag. They then dragged the sleeping bag outside. They put it into the backyard fire pit and lit the fire. Neighbors who lived nearby reported seeing unusually high flames that night, but they obviously would have never assumed that a brutal crime was taking place. The following morning, they gathered up the charred remains, they put them into large paint buckets, and then they drove to a secluded wooded area to dispose of his remains. At one point, and this is so terrible, Michael realized that he could still see Seth's teeth attached to his skull, and in an attempt to get rid of evidence once more, he took a pair of pliers and he pulled the teeth out one by one in an attempt to further cover up his tracks. Afterwards, the group went back to Charlie's house to deep clean the crime scene some more, and that was that. Their plan was complete. So at the police station, investigators were making progress with the individual questionings, kind of, but it wasn't until investigators led all of them into this room together that all of the gruesome details started coming out, because they all lack brain cells, I guess. Didn't realize that they were being recorded, and they talked about everything, and it is horrific. They started discussing the murder in shocking detail. 18-year-old Charlie was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. 15-year-old Amber Wright was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. 20-year-old Justin Soto was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. 18-year-old Michael Vargo was arrested and also charged with first-degree murder. And then you have 27-year-old James Havens, Amber and Kyle's former stepfather. He was also arrested and charged with being an accessory to murder because, come to find out, the morning after, he had met up with a group and helped them all dispose of the charred remains. Michael Vargo was convicted and he was sentenced to death. He is currently on Florida's death row at Union Correctional Institution. Amber Wright was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Kyle Hooper was also convicted and sentenced to death. Justin Soto pleaded guilty and he was sentenced to life in prison. Charlie was originally sentenced to life in prison following her conviction. However, in 2018, she accepted a plea deal to a lesser charge. And in 2020, after serving 9 years, she was released from prison. James Havens pleaded guilty in March of 2018 and he was giving up to 30 years in prison. Yeah, it's horrible. And believe it or not, I spared most of the gruesome details, because it's hard for me to comprehend that human beings, let alone a 15-year-old girl, this is a guy who you once said that you were in love with, and then you're so fine with doing that, and then everyone else, what? I don't know. That is all for me today. Let me know your thoughts on this case, and let me know if you guys have heard of this before. Thank you for spending time with me today and for listening to Seth's story. Hope you guys are having the best day. If not, go do something to make it the best day. Make somebody happy, and I will see you in my next video. Massive kiss on the forehead to every single one of you.